welcome to the Actor's Vow. This is Denise Barratrapat. If you're listening for the first time, welcome. You decided to join us in an amazing episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And please go back and listen to all the other episodes if you haven't. And if you've listened to the podcast many more times, welcome back. It's such a pleasure to share every Wednesday with you. So, I was thinking that there is one thing that most successful people have in common. And that one thing is mindset. And that includes us as actors, whatever, even if you want to do theater or film, whatever it is you want to do. Mindset is such an important thing in this business. And that's the reason why I think a lot of actors give up in, 1 or 2 years of trying. When this guest today messaged me on an email, that was the first thing I noticed about him. And I thought, whoa, this person knows what he wants and he is going for it. And then I started investigating everything he's done, and I was like, I need to bring this person as a guest to the Actor's Vow. So his name is Cris Eli Blak, and he is a playwright, performer, screenwriter, poet, producer, and theater practitioner. So many things, right? It's crazy how this young man is able to do all these things, and he does them amazingly. As a playwright, he has been produced by theaters from New York to London. As a poet, he's a 2-time slam champion and has performed in festivals even in India, and has been published by the International Human Rights Arts Festival, and he's going to be published in the upcoming edition of Prime Number magazine. As a screenwriter and producer, he's worked on the film The Brother Survivor, which won a Bronze Emmy Award at the World Fest Houston International Film Festival, which is where he works and lives, Houston. He is also this year's recipient of the Christopher Hewitt Award for Fiction. His plays just keep winning awards and keep being performed, and it's incredible, like the talent this man has for things, because as you will see in the interview, the main thing I saw when I talked to Cris was his passion for what he does and having things clear, knowing what he wants and pursuing it and not being scared of being himself. I think that's one of the things that really stood out for me about Cris. I don't think he needs a further introduction. You really will enjoy this interview. He talks about really amazing things that I think all artists should hear and learn. So let's welcome Cris Eli Blak to the Actor's Vow. Welcome to the Actor's Vow, Cris. I'm so thankful that you joined us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So the first question I want to ask you is, what made you want to be an actor?
Well, I think, I fell into all this very accidentally. This was, I wasn't in like the community theater production of Annie when I was 8. I don't have the typical kind of, story, I guess. What kind of happened acting wise, at least, is the high school I went to was not a very like artsy high school. It was a very athletic kind of oriented, your typical kind of high school. But every year they had in February a night of poetry, music, and dance. And I had barely stepped foot on a stage. I had taken theater classes just as electives to get the credit. Never thought anything of it. And a buddy of mine said, we should audition for this thing. We should write something and audition. And I said, why not? And so I wrote something really quick. He ended up missing the audition. I go into the audition completely alone. It's a room full of theater people, and I'm just like this stranger in the corner. And then I go up and I do it, and it's what I imagine. It's what I imagine a drug addict feels like the first time they take a shot or they smoke or something. I instantly felt like, oh, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and no one's going to be able to stop me. I just instantly felt at home performing. And that feeling, went into when I actually did that show and was on stage, and there's people in the audience, and the applause was like, it hit so differently. Uh, and so I decided, in that moment, okay, I'm never leaving the stage one way or the other, no matter what job or position I'm in. And I auditioned for the theater class the next week, the theater troupe, and I got in because only 10 people auditioned, and we all got in. Um, and yeah, this is kind of how I started going down that path.
Yeah. I love that. We all have had that moment of that feeling that you described. And you're so right.
Yeah.
It is like a drug. Like, and once you start, you can't stop. So
Oh, yeah.
I totally understand. So we met because you messaged me. And I love that. And I really want to talk about that because you don't see that much. And it's such an important thing in the acting world or any kind of artist industry that you're in. And you said, if someone doesn't know you, introduce yourself. We live in such a world where it's like, we're so scared of the outcome. What if they don't answer? So many people ask me, how do I message a casting director? How do I become friends with a director? And it's like, well, how you would do it with any human, right? So what's your perspective on that?
My perspective is simple. It's the worst thing someone can say is no. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the worst thing someone can say to you is no, and you move on and you go on to the next one. I kind of live by the quota of I can email 1,000 people a day, and I know at least one of them is gonna say, okay, let's talk about this or let's do something. I feel like rejection is just a part of this business. I feel like if you come into this expecting automatically for someone to appreciate you or respect you or take you in, you need to find another thing to do. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with us living in a generation of instant gratification. We know we can post something and get 200 likes in 2 minutes, and it feeds our ego. And so we kind of expect that with everything. We see these 15-year-olds who post one video on YouTube or one 15-second TikTok, and they become billionaires. And we want to know, why can't we do that? So we go and we download an app and we try to make a video, and it doesn't hit the same way. And so what do most people do? They say, well, I'm just going to delete this. I'm not going to see it through. You can't, it's not that easy. I mean, if I had stopped the first time I got a rejection letter, I'd be, I'd be a mechanic, or I'd be something completely, I'd do something that I knew would be guaranteed. I mean, imagine what would have happened if the first time you went for an audition and someone told you no, you just gave up.
Yeah.
It's a part of the thing. So yeah, I try to reach out to people as much as I can. I feel like that's just, one, I think it shows initiative. And two, I don't really have another choice. Like 98% of the opportunities I've received have been through me reaching out and bothering people and then being like, okay, let's give the kid a shot. And then, it's only 2% of that was people seeing something and offering me something. The rest is literally going out and getting it. And we have no excuse not to nowadays. I mean, literally, we're all in this bubble. We're all on the screens, on our phones and our laptops. So it's no travel necessary. I can go to Spain. I can go to London without getting out of my bed. There's no excuse not to have meetings. There's no excuse not to take advantage of the technology and the resources we have to try and make something. So, yeah.
I love that. This reminds me of the story Leslie Odom Jr. says in his book. He had been, have you read it?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, he talks about like, he was about to give up, right? And he met up with his father-in-law, who's also in the industry.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to give up. And the father-in-law said, well, that's fine, but before you do that, I'd like to see you try.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. Like,
yeah.
How many calls, how many emails do you send a day? And that's part of her job, the same way that it is, to practice a monologue. And so many people don't understand this part of the business. So absolutely, I agree with you. the other day you were talking about how we expect others to be a certain way that caters to us, and how others also expect us to be that way, and how so many times we act for others, whether it's like, an audition or the art we create, what are people gonna like. And you said, that you realize that you don't have to be like that, that you just have to be you and everything else will come. So how did you come to this realization, and what made you get to this point?
Basically, I I am happier being myself than I am trying to be whoever somebody else wants me to be. And luckily, I found that out early enough in life, to where I wasn't miserable for my entire youth. But I remember, going into middle school, and middle school is kind of that transformative time when you're not sure who you are, and you want to be like everybody else, and you just want to meet whatever status quo everyone else is following. And I remember trying to do that and just being greatly unhappy. And also, people can smell bullshit. Like, they know when that's not you. And so even if you're trying your absolute best to be like everybody else, they know that you're not. And it was terrible. And so, when I went to high school, or close to high school age, I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just gonna, whatever I want to do, I'm going to do. I'm going to be who I am. And I found that I was so much happier. And I found that once you start being yourself, people gravitate towards you, because they want to know, well, this kid does not care about what anyone thinks about him. I wonder why. And also, I don't have the time to impress everybody. I just don't. And so, yeah, it's just do what makes you happy. And the last time I tried to impress, or not impress someone, but try to keep someone in my life, by trying to be someone I wasn't, I ended up at literally the lowest point. Because it doesn't just go for friendships, and it doesn't just go for work. It goes into relationships, and it goes into all that. And when you're trying to be someone that you're not, a lot of toxicity can bleed through. And so, I ended up with a negative balance. I ended up, not listening to anybody around me who was talking to me with sense, because I thought, I know what I'm doing, that ego, and I know what I'm doing. And I think I'm happy right now doing what I think I'm supposed to do to keep this person in my life, or this person in my life. And it completely kind of ruined my life. And the only way I got out of that hole uh, was by really having to say, okay, that's not who I am. This is who I am. This is who I want to become, and taking the necessary steps for that. So yeah, the best way to live your life is just being yourself, because even if you're like everybody else, everyone's not going to accept you. So stop trying to please everybody else, because you're still going to have someone who doesn't like you or vibe with you. So find the people you vibe with, stick with them, find your 5 good friends, and live with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said, when you're yourself, you start attracting people, but most importantly, you attract the right people. Because,
Yeah.
so many times we worry, like, will people like me? Will the casting director like me? Whatever it is. But it's like, do I like them? Like, do I genuinely want to do this job? Do I genuinely want to hang out with these people and spend my energy on that?
Yeah.
So,
And no matter how good of an actor you are, you can't, it's going to come through, and you're going to crack at some point.
yeah, absolutely. When I was reading about you, apart from like all the things you've done, which is very impressive, you're a playwright, poet, actor, all the slashes there. But what I was most impressed about is your mindset. Like, you seem a very young person, and it seems like you have really clear goals, and everything that you want, it's very clear to you. So I was curious to know if, like, you have a daily practice or something that you live by, that you always do, that keeps you going.
I don't know if I have a daily practice. I have one thing at midnight every night. I get on my laptop, and that's when I start sending emails and submitting to places and bothering people. So from like midnight to 1, 2 o'clock, that's what I'm doing. And because that's usually when new opportunities pop up, and I can just search things, and when I'm just in a calm enough mindset. to get ready, to do those kinds of things, and just trying to write every day, but also understanding that every single day, mental health wise, there are days when you need to take a break.
Yeah.
Um, and just checking my email constantly to see who is responding. I remember when I got your email, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, hey, I was like, yes, okay, great. Finally,
That's when I send
okay.
emails too, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, someone gets it. And then like he responded like 15 minutes later. I was like, okay, yeah, she gets it. She gets it. So yeah, I don't know if there's any daily practice. It's just making sure that you're healthy first, and then going out and basically seeing what's out there for the day. And sometimes it's nothing, and you have to step back and say, okay, we'll see what comes tomorrow. So yeah.
Cool. So in our industry, we have like this concept that they tell us a lot of times we have to choose one thing. I remember the first time I moved to LA, I met up with one of the, I can say his name, but he's a stunt person. And he told me that, I was telling him I love directing, I've directed plays, I love acting. And he was like, whoa, no, if you want to be successful, you have to choose one. You can't act and direct. If not, you're always going to be over the place. And, I want to know what you think about that, because you do so many things and how you do all those things at the same time.
I think that guy was mad that he didn't know how to direct. But
I agree.
But yeah, I just I don't get people who say you can only do one thing. I I think the best thing to do, even if you're not good at everything, is to try everything. So you can get an understanding of it. Because I've acted, I know how to write for actors, and I better know how to direct actors. Because I know what I want as an actor, and I know how I feel as an actor. And same thing when I'm an actor, reading someone else's words, I can kind of get what they're trying to say. By the way they punctuate, by the way they have cutoffs, I can say, oh, I do that, and this is kind of what I look for when I do that. And also, the biggest inspirations to me are the people who are those multi-hyphenates and who do different things. I fell in love with movies before anything else, and kind of the movie that changed my life was Do the Right Thing, which is a Spike Lee movie. And I remember watching the movie and being like, I don't know who this actor is, and then seeing at the end, oh, so Spike Lee he gave himself the lead in the movie, and he wrote the movie, and he produced the movie, and he directed the movie. Well, okay, so he gets so he really, he was in control of it, and he knew exactly how he wanted it to look, sound, feel, all of that. And sometimes you have to do that, and also sometimes you have to do it so that you get the job, period. Because I'm a young Black guy. The options for me are still very limited. I might be able to play thug number 2. So I mean, I'm just honestly, so I don't have a good enough cadence to do that. I don't have a goal to spend my whole life playing thieves and gang members and stuff. And so I'm gonna write my own, and I'm gonna write them for my friends who have the same problem. I'm gonna write it for my Black friends who are sick of playing gang members, for my Latino friends who are sick of playing gang members, for my Muslim friends who are sick of playing terrorists, for my LGBTQ friends who are sick of playing strictly LGBTQ people. I have no concept of why we can't have like a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible with an ensemble of gay people. I would give all my money to that movie.
That sounds awesome. Yep.
Yeah, I would give every single penny I have to see that movie. So I feel like if you're on all the sides, you're in control better, and not like a control freak, because that's a completely different thing. But just being able to know what you want and know what you want to see, and show people, get yourself out there that way. Like you're doing right now. You have this podcast. you're an actress slash podcaster, and this is your platform, and you kind of control the narrative. And so it's the same thing. You just have to. It's you knowing what you want to do and putting yourself out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just love what you're saying. You know, it's like it's rare times that you find someone that thinks like that, and I think like that too. But you know, as actors, I've spent all quarantine reading books about screenwriting and playwriting. You know, and like I've directed, and it's like some people are like, "Well, you're an actor. Why do you want to know about that?" And it's like, well,
Right.
if I know how it works, I'm able to understand it better. Or like I've
Yeah.
worked with directors that have never acted, and you can tell because the direction they're giving you doesn't really make any sense in the acting world. So absolutely, you have to understand everything, at least try it once. Yeah. So across all the things you do, playwriting, acting, poetry, do you think there's one thing that you could describe that ties them all together?
Oh man, coming with the tough questions. One thing that ties them all together, story. They all have to do with this. All have to do with story. All have to do with telling stories. Just in different mediums, and I just kind of sometimes the story I want to tell comes out in verse, and I write it as a poem or a song. Sometimes it comes out in dialogue, and so I have to write it as characters and as a play in different voices. Sometimes it comes out as a movie scene. I think of a short film I wrote that was shot last summer called The Brother Survivor. The only reason that movie exists is because I was staying at my best friend's house. This was around that same time that I was really at the bottom, and I was staying with a friend, and we were walking his dog, and I said, I have an idea. I have a story to tell. And for the next 2 hours, we went through that story and figured it out. And I just thought I was coming up with characters and writing characters. But then I saw the movie a few months later after it was done, and I said, oh, these characters are myself. I wrote like multiple versions of myself. I wrote different sides of myself. And so the story always comes through no matter what. It's just based on what medium you want to tell it with and which one suits it the best.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do as artists, right? No matter what you do, that's exactly what I talked about in the last episode last week. Like people are like, what do I create? Well, you have to look around you and like what stories are not being told. And it's what you were saying before, right? Like that's why we create. Like there are so many voices that are not being heard. And that's what we do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a lot of times we have the idea that everything happens in one place. You have to be in LA, you have to be in New York City to make it. And you are actually in Houston, and you've done so many things. And you also have expanded your work internationally. You've had plays performed in London. You said you performed in India. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, so I am like not from any of the places that you're kind of supposed to be in to make it happen, quote unquote. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. I was raised in Houston, Texas. I'm in kind of quarantine Louisville right now. And yeah, I feel like it's more about who you know rather than where you are. And I believe that those people are all over the place. The only reason I got to perform for the theater festival that's in India is because of a student organization in Pittsburgh. And so it's like just really weird things like that. And I think that talent speaks louder than your physical body. And I think that people will hear about you in New York, in Los Angeles, based on people you know and based on work that you've done. But also, I do think that, of course, if you can make it to New York or you can make it to Los Angeles, go run as fast as you can and get there. I've had the the luck of being able to connect and speak with a lot of people in both of those places, and have work beginning to be developed in both of those places. But I don't plan on moving to those places anytime soon.
Right.
For one, COVID. For two, rent expenses. I'd rather live in a place that's a little bit more feasible.
Yeah.
But I'll still be able to work in those places. And so yeah, I say don't aim for who accepts you. It goes back to that whole thing about just being with the kind of people who accept you and understand you. Don't try to fit yourself to fit into what you think New York wants or what you think Los Angeles wants. I watched a thing a few weeks ago that was all about the difference between our plans and our purpose. Your plan might be, I want to go to LA, I want to go to Hollywood and be this, on the beach famous actress or actor. But your purpose might be to be in some regional theater in Indiana, and that might be what you're supposed to be doing, and that might be the life you're supposed to be leading, and that might be where you meet, your wife or husband, and that it's just you can't control those things. So I think wherever you feel the most comfortable, uh, try that out. And then maybe that'll go to New York or something. You can't wake up and say, time to go to Broadway. It's just, that's just, I mean, if you have that kind of luck, please, tear me off some, but
it doesn't work like that usually.
It's really, but it usually doesn't work like that.
No.
So yeah, you got to start somewhere, and maybe you'll get there, and that's great. There's gravy if you get there, but don't reach for it and constantly chase that goal, because if you just keep chasing that one thing, you're completely ignoring all the other opportunities that you may have gotten elsewhere.
Yeah, that's great advice. So many times we get blinded by what the plan is, what you said, that you're not enjoying what you have at that moment. Like you might be having so many opportunities around you that you're blocking because you're not seeing them. You're just so focused, I need to be on Broadway. And if I'm not there, I'm not so successful, whatever that means. So, yeah. I want to talk about your play, Concrete Jungle. I've read that it's won awards and it's been performed overseas. So I'd love for you to tell us, how you wrote it and what it is about and what inspired it.
So Concrete Jungle is a really strange case. It's the greatest example of how you cannot plan anything. I wrote Concrete Jungle for a festival. We had one day to write, prepare, produce the whole show. And so I wrote it the night I was assigned my director and my actors. And I thought, okay, well, it's for this festival. And once they performed it, I didn't think anything else was going to come of it. It is a play about a young man who witnesses someone being killed by the police. And it was written kind of before the whole eruption of protests and stuff that's going on at the moment. And it just kind of took a life of its own, unexpectedly. It went through that festival, and then it went to another festival and was performed. And then, you get a call from London. You get a call from the Queen's Theatre in London, saying they want to do it. And then you get a call from a theater in some small town in Australia. And you just mind blown. One, because you find out, the problems that we think are strictly American are not.
Yeah.
These are the same fights and issues that they've been having overseas for a long time. And so that's just a mind blowing experience. And then you get the email that, you won the play won the grand prize at a theater in New York, and they're going to put it on. And so I've kind of accepted. It's kind of like, I feel like writing is kind of like getting pregnant. I don't know what that feels like. I'll never know what that feels like. But I think it's like you get pregnant with the idea, you give birth to it, you write it out, you kind of stick with it for its early days, and then it grows up and goes off and does things on its own. and you just hope that it makes good decisions. So yeah, Concrete Jungle is one of those babies that I just kind of let go into the ether, and it's made a life of its own, and it's traveling, and it's falling in love with people, and I just kind of get to sit back and be proud of it at this point. So yeah, that's one of those really curious cases, and yeah.
Yeah. But also, I don't know, but I think you're saying, a step back, but you've also put a lot of work in it, right? Like what you're saying, you're still writing those emails, you're still putting in the work.
Well, yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
putting in the work for it. But once it gets picked up and they assign a director to it and they assign their own actors to it, um, I just I'm just in the corner in case they need
Right.
feedback. I'm not the type to hover over you and say, do it this way, that way. There are those who will be like, I want you in the process. And then there are those, it was a festival that it was in that the director was like, hey, we have rehearsals at this time. If you want to show up, show up. If you don't. And I decided I'm not going to show up. I want to see what they do without my presence. And they did a kick-ass job. So yeah, I'm still involved and I'm still pushing it out there for those opportunities, but I am not in control of those things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have like a process, or how do you start writing? Like, do you come up with an idea, or like do you sit down? How does it happen?
Usually I cry myself to sleep for about a month, and then
Okay.
So typically how it goes, I'm not someone who can sit and like write one line at a time and feel satisfied. Usually how it happens is kind of a whole scene or the whole idea just kind of hits me.
Yep.
And then I can sit down and write it. I can't go a page a week. That is terrifying to me. It gives me the worst headaches. And so that's usually what I do. I wait for whatever, because we all have 1,000 ideas in our head and we don't know which one that's actually a good idea. So I wait for that one idea that's bothering me in the shower or bothering me when I'm walking. And then I kind of say, okay, well, what comes after the general idea? And usually it's the title that comes first, which is funny because a lot of times people, like, the title will have absolutely nothing to do with the finished story. Yeah. So it'll be a title that someone, I wrote a show that its title is the name of a park. And so someone was like, oh, wow, that's a really interesting idea to have your show take place in a park. I was like, listen, the park has nothing to do with it. The park is not mentioned in the whole thing. I just came up with the title and then the story came after. And so, yeah, it's just kind of it bleeding out and getting to know the characters. And, I think also going back to your question about being able to do more things than once, I think all playwrights are actors because we literally have to.
Yes.
I play every single character in whatever play I'm writing, and it's so much fun. I get to go from being a 20-year-old white guy to a 90-year-old Jamaican woman, and it is the best thing on the planet. And so, yeah, it's generally like that. Or I don't get it at first, and I do have to close my laptop and sleep on it, because I've learned very quickly that if you try to force something, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're not going to be able to come up with anything and you're going to be dissatisfied by it all, or you're just going to put something down because you feel like you need to put something down and it's going to be awful. So either it comes at once and I can do it, or it comes step by step and I do it, or I just don't need to do it at all. It's no need to push your brain to do something. The idea will come when it's ready to come.
I love that. I'm the same. Like, I'm just laughing because it has to be something that doesn't let me sleep if I'm gonna do it. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'll go weeks without doing it, and then when I get to it, I won't sleep. I'll be up until 10 a.m. writing.
Because it keeps tapping you on the shoulder. It's that thing that when you finally feel relaxed, you finally feel like you're done for the day, you lay down, you close your eyes, and then the idea says, wait, but there's something else. There's something else.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go to sleep because then you wake up. So many times I've had an idea and I'm like, I'll get to it in the morning. I wake up and I've completely forgotten it. So now I'm just like, it's 5 a.m. The idea wants me to be up. Let me put this down, then I can go to sleep.
Yeah. So we have this concept of, I'll do this when I'm ready. And it has to do with like playwriting too, right? Like people are always waiting, I'll go to this place when I have money, or I'll give up my job to pursue acting when I have money, or when I have the skills. That's never going to happen if you keep waiting for the right moment, because the right moment, it's probably never going to come. So if someone wanted to, write a play like you do, what would you tell them that they're waiting for the right moment?
I tell them this is the right moment.
Okay.
You stop asking me questions and write the play.
Yeah.
Listen, I know looking at someone's resume might tell you one thing, but I guarantee you their life tells you another. I know I can write 20 things a year, and it does not matter. I know the best thing I have in me probably won't come out until I'm 50. And that's just the truth. I can spend my whole 20s, 30s, 40s writing things, getting them out there, sending those emails, but the magnum opus kind of thing, it's in me somewhere right now, but I can't reach it and I can't try to reach it. And so that's the kind of thing you do need to quote unquote wait for, just so that it has the time to develop and grow. Because I look back at plays that I wrote when I was 18 and they're fucking terrible. And I thought they were genius, but you have to go through those things. You have to do the trial and error. You have to write the shitty things. You have to it's kind of like cooking. You have to get through the fat to get to the good meat. I don't cook. I don't know why I said that like I actually cook. But I'm just trying to impress people. But yeah. But in the meantime, write whatever you have in mind. Do it. And then rewrite it, and then write it again. It's that old quote, writing is rewriting, and that's true. The first draft, no matter how satisfying it is, something's wrong with it. I remember when I was a kid and I was in class and we had to revise and edit our essays. And I went to my teacher and she was like, you don't have anything, you haven't revised anything in your essay. And I said, well, yeah, because nothing's wrong with my essay. My essay is perfect. Yeah, like I don't know what you're talking about. This essay is going to win me a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, okay, give it to me. And she read it and she took the red pen out and was like, this should be a comma, not a semicolon, or this, and it was a wake up call, kind of like, okay, so the first draft is never what it seems to be at first. And even for things as small as typos, I am a huge typo guy, because when I'm in the groove of it, I don't look down at my keyboard. I'm just typing. Yeah. And unless it's really, really misspelled or really, really a mistake, I'm not going to catch it. Yeah. I just kind of move on, and then I go back and read something I've sent somebody, and I feel like an idiot because I'm like, oh my God, it's so many things wrong with this. And I thought it was fine. So if you have an idea, pursue it. Don't quit your job though. Like if you don't have a lot saved up or you don't have a rich family, stay at your job. Find a schedule that allows you to do both. Don't think that being a starving artist literally means that you need to starve. Don't. Do what you need to do for you, for your family, for whatever, but also take the time to pursue what you want to pursue. So yeah.
Yeah, it's also like, being scared of failure. Like in everything in life, you have to go through like the failure to get to the success. And so many of us are scared of failure, When we were talking at the beginning, they tell us no one time. And that's why there are so many people who graduate from, acting school or whatever, and they just last 1 year, 2 years, because they're not willing to go through that failure to get to the success.
I think that we all lose every single day. We lose something every single day. We're born losers, and we need to, if someone always wins, they're like a really lucky guy and such. But yeah, accept failure. And I think that failures are the best things to have, for the simple fact that you learn something from those. Each time I failed at something in life,
Okay.
I've learned, okay, next time I need to do this differently. So failure, yeah, accept it, take it in stride.
Yeah.
Get your, emails where they say thank you, but no thank you. And it hurts for 20 seconds, or you might have to spend the whole day just in bed having self-pity. But the next day you're gonna be like, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? I remember I auditioned first. I had two auditions. I auditioned for one show, and I thought I did really good at the audition. I thought the people liked me. They called me back. I stayed in the room for a while. I was like, okay, you kind of get like people like me. Okay, I
Yeah.
got this. And then, they told us the day that they were going to be emailing people and contacting people. And so, I was up all night. But I was also like, no, I got this. They like me. They called me back. They talked to me and laughed at my jokes. And then, I got the email like 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was like, we think you're great, but you're just not right for us. Sorry, but and you're like, oh, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And then, you go to your other audition and you don't do as well. The one thing I auditioned for was a play, the other one was a musical. I am not the most vocally gifted person. I am not the most dance talented person. And the audition was singing, and it was singing a monologue, a 1 minute monologue, which whoever came up with show us all your acting skills in 1 minute was an asshole. Yeah. um, and then a dance call. And so I found a song that was like so moderately pitched that anyone could sing it and it sound decent. And then I found a 1 minute monologue I thought was funny, but it really wasn't. And then as for the dance call, I just had to go with it. And I was auditioning for two musicals in the same day because it was with the same company. And so I went in the room and I gave them the piano music, the sheet music, which I just printed out for free online. I don't advise you do that because it was like cut off and like blurry. And so the pianist, I was lucky that the pianist knew the song.
Okay.
So
He probably hated you in his mind.
Yeah, he was like, forget it, I got it. So he played the piano, and what I found, little audition hack for those who can't sing, make sure you stand close to the piano because the piano will be louder than your voice. And so, and that's what I found out. So I just kind of let the piano drown me out. So I sounded at least decent. And then I did my monologue, and then the guy was like, come back at 4 for the dance call. And I went to the dance call, and the first show was it's a musical called Hair, which is about a bunch of hippies in the 60s. And so basically the choreography was act high. And I was like, I can do this. And so I just like got on the floor and started moving around and flailing. And yeah, again, looking back, I probably looked ridiculous. And then the next show was the musical Mamma Mia, which is heavily choreographed, like on the ones and twos. And I've never been trained in dance. If you like put on a song and like drop the radio, I might be able to bust a move, but I've never had to like learn a dance. And so the choreographer came in, and I guess she thought she was on Broadway because she was like, okay, 1, 2, 3. And she just did the dance and was like, all right, now you guys are going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, excuse me, can we do that like 5 more times? And so I failed at that dance, and then I ended up getting cast in both of those shows. So sometimes the show that you expect you did great at, you didn't do as great as you thought. And the show that you thought you did awful at, you get and you do better than you thought. I remember the choreographer coming in to teach us the dances once we actually began with Hair. And she was like, I remember you from the audition. At the dance call, you did really good. And my jaw literally hit the floor. And I was like, oh, I thought I did awful, but apparently I did good. Or she was just being nice. So
no, I think it's so important to not judge your own performance. And so many times we actors like give it away. We'll finish the monologue or a dance and we know we did horrible and we'll make a face. And it's like, well, maybe they
Right.
didn't think it was horrible. Like, don't make that face. Let them decide for
Yeah,
themselves if
let
it was
them
bad or
decide.
not.
Like,
Yeah.
usually, I think the reason casting directors are casting directors, some of them, are that they have the ability to see something that no one else can.
Yeah.
The director of those shows saw something that I still don't. He saw someone who, you might not have the best voice, you might not be the best dancer, but maybe you have the personality to defeat all of those things. So yeah.
And sometimes the tenacity, like to learn that. Because someone might
Oh
be
yeah.
really good, but they might not be willing to learn more. But you seem
Oh
to be
yeah.
someone who is ready.
They definitely saw that day a guy who can't sing or dance had the balls to come in and audition for 2 singing and dancing musicals. So if he can dedicate to that, I think he can learn their minds.
Exactly. Yeah. So at the end of the first message you sent me, you said, I am just getting started. And it was like such a Hamilton moment. I was just like, there's a million things I haven't done, but just you wait. Because you also sent me like all the amazing things, and I saw, in your Instagram, you've done so much. And I thought it was great. But I want to know, what are your goals? Like, what is making it for you?
Oh man. A year ago, if you asked that question, I would say making it would be doing exactly the things I'm doing now, just being able to do what I love doing. I think that, people in our business, whether you're a writer, an actor, or whatever, your job is to fall in love every single day. And that's not easy to do. And sometimes, you get heartbroken because of it. Sometimes it stumps on you, and it's a tough business to go through. But just to be able to do the things that I love to do and do it every single day is such a blessing and such a gift. But I mean, goals. I'd love to, of course, I'd love to have a show on Broadway or something. Of course, a part of me is like, the youngest playwright to ever have a show on Broadway was 29, I believe, 28 or 29, 28,
Okay.
I want to say. And so I'm like, well, I have a few years to beat her.
Yeah.
And so it's setting impossible goals for yourself. Just wanting to really change the way that theater is seen, in the sense that, I did not grow up with theater strictly because I did not think theater was for me. Point blank period. I did not think theater was for me. Theater on the broad spectrum is not for anyone who isn't, well, let's say this, the typical Broadway ticket buyer is an older white woman who makes $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
Growing up how I grew up, I was never going to go see shows.
Right.
I only went to go see plays on field trips and things. It did not feel accessible to me. It did not feel like a life that I was ever that was in my grasp. Until I found out, oh, it is. You just have to do it. You just have to meet people and basically tell them, ego aside, but also kind of sounding a little bit egotistical, like, give me a chance and I will show you that you need me. I will show you that I am valuable. And meaning it, and going in and putting in the work. And so I think my biggest goal is just to make theater and all the art forms that I work in accessible to kids who grew up the same way I did, who don't see theater or don't see the arts as a way out. You referenced Hamilton, and literally I wrote my way out. I didn't do all the shit he did, but I wrote my way out of my conditions. I wrote my way out of the hole I was in, and I wrote my way into having a life in this business. And it's amazing. It blows my mind. And I know actors who have done the same thing. I know a guy who got a scholarship to play football, and at the last minute he fell in love with acting, and he rejected the scholarship to play football. He rejected the thing that most of us would have dreamed of getting, because he fell in love with this thing, and he got passionate about it, and he decided to dedicate his life to it, and he's acting his way out of his conditions, and it's so amazing. And so if, if I can write one play that, one kid sees or one kid listens to, the Actors Vow podcast and hears me, and they decide, oh, I can do this. And that is something that I can do, even though I come from a family or a single mom, and we're struggling. And it seems like the only way we're ever going to get out of this is if I become a doctor or a lawyer or a football player or a musician. It's not it. Because just like people say, don't be an actor, don't go into the arts because it's too competitive and you'll never make it. You know how many people are in medical school right now? You know how many people are in law school right now?
And they hate their lives, a lot of them. Like they don't even like what they do.
They're miserable. They just, I remember when I was a senior in high school, we had to make vision boards. And basically it is, you put all your dreams onto a poster board and tell the class about it, which is a insane experience. And every single kid in my class wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, a neurologist. And then I stood up and I was the only kid in the class who was like, yeah, I just want to like write things and like be in theater. And they were just like, he's never gonna have a home. Like but what I noticed was that every single one of those students who said, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a dentist, at the end of their kind of presentation, they said, but I really enjoy playing piano. Or like, I really love writing poetry, but this is the thing that, my parents want me to do, or this is the thing that's gonna get me financially secure. And I'm just kind of like, well, I'm going to do this until it makes me financially secure.
Yep.
The time you spend in medical school, I'm going to spend the same amount of time busting my ass, sending emails to people, passing scripts out on the street if I have to. Once this whole pandemic is over, literally knocking on doors and walking into places and being, it's a list of every single Black-owned theater in the United States. I saw it. I said, I'm going to email every single one of these theaters. So I'm going like state to state every single day. I'm in like, I think North Carolina right now. Okay. And so I'm like, I'm going to email thousands of these people. And one has already gotten back. And so it's like, okay, great. This is my medical school. This is my law school. This is my hustle. This is my this is my residency. This is my, whatever, internship. I am doing what I have to do to make sure I'm financially secure. And so one day, when I have kids and they have, bring your parents' career day at school, and everyone else's parents are like firefighters and like all cocky about it. My kid can be like, yeah, well, my dad makes the same amount of money writing plays. So suck on that, Timmy. So yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that was beautiful. We need doctors, we need lawyers, but I think it's so important that whoever.
We need as many doctors as we can get.
yeah. But like, it's so important. If someone's listening this that's still in high school, or even if you are 30, whatever, like ask yourself why you do what you do. And so many times the answer is, our parents told us to do this, or society told us that was the easy thing to do, or the thing that would bring in money. And that's so sad. Like we always have a lot. We only have a life, And
on the flip side of that, don't go into theater or film or performance because you think it's going to get you rich.
Oh,
don't.
Of course.
I know so many people who are like, what do you want to do? I want to be an actor. Why? Because I want to be famous. Oh my God.
That's the wrong reason. Never.
That is the wrong reason, because you are going to be so depressed 24/7. You have to do it because you really love it, and you have to do it because it's really like a deep down passion that you cannot stop doing, even when you probably should. You just keep going. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think you also have to find no selfish reasons. I mean, we might all have started for a selfish reason, what we said, the feeling that it gave us. And we all have been there. Yeah, I started because, it took me out of like the sad life I had. And when I was on stage, I was happy. But you at some point have to find a selfless reason why we do it, because this is not for yourself. You're doing this art for everybody. So that's what art is.
Yeah.
So you kind of answered this, but my last question for you is, what inspires you?
Oh, okay. Um, Phew, uh, I want to say the things that inspire me, my family is a big inspiration. I come from a family of people who did what they needed to do to feed their families. My grandfather is someone who grew up in the 50s as an African American man in the United States in the South. Um,
No.
and he walked into his job. He walked into like his factory job, and he had paint thrown over onto his head, um, just because of what he looked like and because of who he was. And then he ended up being those people's boss. Like he went to school. He went through all that. He went through the pain and the bullying and the discrimination, and then he was promoted each year until he was in control of everybody. Um, and so that's just inspirational, coming from a family of people who make something out of nothing, coming from being raised by a woman, um, women who sacrificed everything, who put everything on the line to feed their family. My mom, my aunt, um, my sister, just these people who I grew up around who built me into who I am, um, and who supported me. I'm very lucky to have come from a supportive family.
Yep.
Who inspire me by supporting me, by complimenting me and criticizing me. Um, and teachers who actually cared, teachers who actually took the time to teach. That English teacher who I made the vision board for class, she was my 12th grade AP English teacher. And I remember we had to do, we were studying like Korean literature, and we had to do like 3 projects on Jekyll and Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
And so for my 3 projects, I wrote a poem. I wrote an essay comparing Jekyll and Hyde to an LL Cool J song. And then I did something else, and it was completely different than what anyone else was doing.
Right.
They were all like writing really like college level dissertations about Jekyll and Hyde, and I was like, well, this is like this hip hop song because, and just feeling like an idiot as everyone else was going up. And then at the end of class, she passes me a note, and the note says, "Students like you are the reason," and I'll never forget it. She says, "Students like you are the reason I still teach." And just the power of someone believing in you when they have no reason, um, and even in that year alone having a tough time my senior year because of multiple reasons, and not the best student at all in her class, but she still very much treated me like her best student. And even today we still talk and you know communicate. And so, yeah, teachers who cared, family members, friends who, you know, push you and believe in you and motivate you. Um, my one of my good friends who is actually the director of the short film that I wrote. I had a class with him every single year in high school. And I now know that was no accident. Life put me literally beside him every single year of my formative life, to say, this guy's going to help you out, stick with him. And he's, a guy I send my writing to, and he comes back with 2 pages of notes.
Wow.
Same with my mom. I gave her something that I had written a couple weeks ago, and I was just kind of like, this is, again, you feel like this is the best thing I've ever written. And then, my mom comes back to me. She's like, I know you can do better than this. Like, how much you did not spend too much time on this, and I can tell. And you're like, you know what, you're right. And so just having honesty is inspirational. And seeing other people do things is inspirational. I feel like it's very easy to get jealous of other people and say, oh, well, they're doing something that I want to do. No, look at what they're doing and take influenced by what they're doing, and sometimes just completely steal what they're doing and make it your own, and try to succeed in it that way. Because that's what I've done with my favorite writers and playwrights. I look, okay, how do they do it? Okay, they develop their own unique voice. Okay, they tell the stories that relate to their childhood. Okay, well, what was my childhood? How can I make that into a story? And how can I? So basically, everything is an inspiration to me. I find inspiration in people I see in the aisle of the grocery store. If I see a pregnant woman buying a bag of chips, I want to know, why is she buying that bag of chips?
Yeah.
What is she having is she having a party tonight? Is she eating it alone? Is she sad and this is her junk food night? Like, what is happening when she leaves the doors of the store? And that inspires me to, don't follow people, don't do that, but use your imagination and say, okay, what comes next in this story, or what came before? So everything inspires me.
I love that. Okay, well, before you go, I'd like for you to tell the people who are listening where they can find your work and where they can find you.
Right. So you can find me on Instagram, in which I spend way too much time on, and that is at Cris Eli Blak. That is Chris without the H, Black without the C, because who needs spelling? And yeah, you can also find me on Facebook at Cris Blak, and you can just Google. If you just Google the name, it'll all come up. So yeah, make it easy on you.
Your work, is there anywhere people can find your plays?
Oh, well, the thing is, it's based on different theaters. So if you, again, just look up the name, if something comes up, go to the videos tab or something, and maybe you can find one. And usually when I post about it on Instagram or something, I'll say where to find it. So yeah.
Well, hopefully we can have that in our homes published really soon. We'd love to read that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today. It was a very inspirational conversation. So
thank you so much.
Wasn't that so inspiring? Like, I remember when I finished my conversation with Chris, I was blown away. Not just, by everything he had to say, but he's also so young and so talented. And he just knows what he's talking about, and he is so confident in himself. I think that's something we all can learn from, right? That he knows what he wants, he goes for it. And he's also a very humble person. So I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you did too. I hope we can hear from Chris in the future in the Actors Vow again. And before we finish the episode, I want to bring the play of the week. So this week's play is Proof by David Auburn. I know most of you have heard it. Probably you've read it. It's a play that most college programs make you read and most college programs perform. But if you haven't, if you're still in high school, if you're looking for audition material, it's a really, maybe a little bit overdone play, but you could still use it, especially if you're looking for college program entrance auditioning. So Proof by David Auburn has really minimal characters, so also if you're looking for scene study or just a monologue for yourself to work on your acting and your craft right now that we have nothing else to do and we're all stuck at home, this is something I would look at. It has a very strong female character and has great male characters too. So this is the play of the week. Thank you so much for joining me another week. If you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. If you want to be featured on a Sunday Spotlight, there is a submission form in theactorsvow.com. You just answer a few questions and I will contact you if you are selected for the Sunday Spotlight, and you will be able to share your story and be part of this community. If you don't follow the Actors Vow on social media, don't forget to follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I will see you next Wednesday.